Julie French is an executive coach, a certified master trainer of NLP, and a certified trainer of the Havening techniques. Along with her partner, Tony Burgess, she is the co-creator of the Academy of High Achievers in Stafford, England, and the co-author of Beliefs and How to Change Them. You are listening to the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast, a show devoted to uncovering the systems and the secrets that set the best apart, where you learn how to take your coaching clients to the next level, while you grow the coaching practice of your dreams. So sit back and relax, or sit up and get excited. Either way, you might want to pay attention. This could be important. All right, so I am joined today with Julie French. Julie, welcome to the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast.
Thank you very much, Doug. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
And just out of curiosity, where are you, actually?
I know. Well, I often ask that question myself. I'm in the UK. I'm in the United Kingdom, and you probably hear that from my accent.
Yeah, but
I'm in Stafford.
Do air quotes when you say United Kingdom these days?
United Kingdom, I know. And I'm in Staffordshire. So I'm in a beautiful little village just outside Stafford, which is between Birmingham and Manchester.
Nice. Okay. Cool. So is that considered Yorkshire then?
No, it's considered Staffordshire.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Oh, I get it.
Yes. Yeah. There's not much that we can say.
Oh, dear. Displaying ignorance right from the get-go. Oh, dear. So, yes, I'm so glad that you're here. So, for disclosure's sake of the people listening, you and I know each other through the world of the Havening techniques. We are both Havening techniques trainers. And it wasn't too long ago, a month or two ago, that I was listening to you on one of those worldwide Havening practice groups that we Zoom out to the world. And you were talking about coaching and how that you'd gotten certified in coaching from Thomas Leonard, who is the same person I got certified in coaching back in the 90s. I hate to admit that, but it was back in the 90s. And so I just was like so impressed by that, because a lot of people have never even heard of him. He died terribly young, at the age of 47 in 2003. And although his creations have gone on, Coachville and Coach U are still things, the International Coaching Federation, he started all those things. Still, a lot of people never heard of him and think coaching has just always been around, but he invented it. Before him, it wasn't existing. So I was just so impressed that you also have had a, personal experience with him and got coached. What year were you introduced to coaching?
Okay, so here's a little bit of my story, Doug.
Yeah.
So I started my career as a social worker and then went up the hierarchical ladder. You probably don't even know any of this. And I ended up in a leadership role in social work. So I managed large county-wide services. And one day, towards the end of the 90s, I sort of looked into the future and I didn't like what I saw. I thought, if I don't do something proactive, I'm going to be here until I retire. And it wasn't that I had parted company with social work, but certainly the management role I was less interested in. And there is a point to this story, which is that when I looked in my diary, or when I was approaching a day, anything to do with management development and people management development, really fueled me, and that told me, something, and there wasn't enough of it, and I thought, how would it be if I had a job which was really all about developing people and helping people to be the best that they could be. That would be amazing. And then a friend of mine mentioned this thing called coaching. So we're now in sort of 1999, and I was, curious. What on earth what is that? Tell me more about it. And her coach was a Coach You coach, and so I said, well, where can I find out about this? So I sent off for a pack. It arrived, and I can still remember the day when I opened that pack up, and it was like, everything I want to do is in here. It was, it was really very, very instant for me. So can
you describe what was in
well signed?
I'm just terribly curious what's in that.
Well, I mean, it was really about the coach training and about, what coaching was all about.
So it was books and templates, or it was tapes and.
It was, it was like a brochure, and with phone this number. So I rather hungrily, called this number, and before very long, I was waving my credit card and booking on to the Coach You Fundamentals course.
Wow.
And at that time, if you remember, it was all, I mean, maybe it still is, all telecast based learning.
Telephone.
And I had to learn how to use this thing called the internet.
Wow.
I know. I had to learn how to use this thing called email.
Wow.
It was, quite something.
Well, if you think that age too, I did it all on telecast. It was before I knew anything email. None of what I did was on email with Thomas. It was all phone calls. Telephone. Yeah.
So I launched straight into it. I got my Jumpstart coach and my Jumpstart program, and then I was in, and I still to this day, so over 20 years later, refer to that Thomas Leonard material, the Personal Foundation program. So much good stuff in there, zapping your tolerations and creating boundaries and getting your needs met, and you're clear about your values and living in integrity, simplifying your life. I use such a lot of these resources, these tools every day in my coaching.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, Thomas Leonard was a genius, or at least, he was channeling something at the time. It was amazing. He was churning out so much stuff, and like you said, still valuable. I whenever I have a coach client, I send the clean sweep to them, and recommend that we do it every few months and go through that. It's just a great tool. And it's just so clear. And, I will say I never have gotten 100% on it myself. I don't wear very expensive sunglasses and, things like that. I still bump into things. But some of the things on that list are just kind of silly. Do you bump into things? It's like, yes, I do. Well, stop it. But, so... I think it could possibly be updated for the state.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely could be updated, but I mean, and do you make your bed every day? There's some really, really, really good things in there, and and I think the principle in there about when we clean up these areas, that we have more energy. I think there's an absolute truth in that. And I can remember one of the first things that I approached that was a toleration was, I don't know whether in the US you have a concept of a Tupperware cupboard, but the cupboard in the kitchen where when you open it up, all the plastic boxes fall out and they haven't got lids. One of those.
Yeah.
One of those cupboards. Yes. And I remember my coach you know, tasking me to clear that cupboard up, you know, take everything out, put everything back that had a lid, chuck everything away. And on the basis that I would have more energy. And, you know, I still do those kinds of things from time to time. You know, I have a good clear out of a cupboard or a drawer, or, you know, my wardrobe, a closet, as you would say. And, you know, if I want more energy, I just open the door of the cupboard, have a look at how tidy it is, and I can feel myself, you know, getting energized.
Oh, that is so interesting. That is so interesting. Yeah, no, I, just as an aside, a number of years ago, when I was working with a Jungian therapist, I was a client, I was a patient or whatever, doing Jungian psychology, Jungian analysis. And he told me a story about a Chinese proverb about a rainmaker that I use with my coaching now all the time, because it's right in line with that. You know, why would a tidy cupboard make any difference? Why would having your bed made every morning make any difference? Who cares? You know, nobody's going to see my bed, whether it's made here, or they'll see my cupboards. So what does it matter? But the story of the rainmaker, I think, is illustrative of why that actually does take place. And the story goes like this. It's a Taoist story, if I recall correctly. And the story is that there was a village that was having a drought, a terrible drought. And so they heard about this magic person who was a rainmaker. So they sent for him. And this is, of course, a long time ago. So that, you know, it took him a while to get the message and a while for him to arrive. But when he finally did, he noticed that this town was like terribly out of touch with the Tao. Like their beds weren't made, their cupboards were all untied. You know, lots of evidence that they were out of touch with the Tao. So they said, well, what do you need? You know, thank you for coming to, you know, help us make rain. Do you need a bonfire? Do you need drummers? Do you need to sacrifice a goat or something? He said, oh, no, thank you. I don't need any of those things. In fact, all I need from you is a place to stay outside of the village if possible, because, you know, frankly, the town is so out of touch with the Tao, I don't actually want to be in it, but somewhere nearby would be perfect. And so they set him up in this little cottage, and he, you know, the first day he arises with the sun, gets up, sweeps the walk, gathers wood to make his tea, makes the tea, has breakfast at breakfast time, lunch at lunchtime, dinner at dinner time, goes to sleep with the sun. Next day he arises with the sun, sweeps the walk, gathers wood for his tea, makes breakfast, it's lunchtime at lunchtime, dinner at dinner time, goes to sleep with the sun. Third day, he arises with the sun, sweeps the walk, gathers wood for the tea, has breakfast at breakfast time, lunch at lunchtime, dinner at dinner time, and goes to sleep with the sun. And then on the fourth day, it rained. Yeah, so that's the story. So basically, the idea is that you get yourself into the right flow, and the rain is symbolic of flow.
Yes.
And that you get all your ducks in a row, get things the way they're supposed to be. And it might not happen immediately, but pretty soon, you know, flow starts happening. You get into the flow of life and things start working the way they're supposed to.
Yeah. No, that really is a lovely story, and that really resonates with me. And I think it is a work in progress. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it needs constant attention. And so bringing in another favorite of mine, Stephen Covey, you know, I love his metaphor of the flight path.
Yes.
You know, and I use that a lot with people.
Tell us that. That is brilliant. Yeah.
Well, it's you know, if I was flying from Birmingham to New York, you know, I'd need a starting point, and I would need, you know, to have a destination. Mm-hmm. But the pilot, most of the flying of the plane, as I understand it, is about getting the plane back onto the flight path. Mm-hmm. So weather conditions is always going to buffet you off that flight path. But as long as you know what the flight path is, then you can be calibrating, you can be checking all the time. You know, where am I now? Am I on the flight path? And if I've drifted off the flight path, in other words, that cupboard has become a bit of a mess again.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, I'm off the flight path. I need to get myself back on it again. And I think that's just such a great metaphor for life, isn't it? And it's very forgiving as well. One of the things I love about Stephen Covey was he was very real. As well as writing The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he also wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families. And when my kids were little, it was a really great resource. And he had 9 children, and so what he said was, do I drift off the flight path? Absolutely I do. Sometimes, do I get impatient with the kids? Yes. But getting back on the flight path is ownership, responsibility, and an apology. And I thought, well, that's just very forgiving. It's not about being perfect. It's about, always looking at what we can do to develop.
Yeah, that's neat. I didn't know that book, actually. I don't have any kids, but I didn't even know that book existed. That's really cool. I'm very familiar with this book, First Things First, which is also filled with wonderful metaphors and things that I also use in my coaching. Yeah, I highly agree. Stephen Covey was a great resource. And this First Things First is great. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is great. I'm glad to know that other book. I'll check that out.
It's great because it's got all the same, the same kind of resources for families. So, having a clear idea about, what your mission is as a parent or parent. I mean, what a concept. And he had this idea of having family meetings.
Right. And
so we used to call family meetings when the kids were little, and give everybody the opportunity to speak and say what's bothering them, and it was great. So again, it's when I'm coaching and the issues are to do with parenting or being the best parent that I can be, I often refer people to that book.
Nice.
I find it really helpful.
Wow. So one of the things I'd like to do when I'm doing these interviews with people and asking about essential coaching skills is to say, what do you think, from all that background stuff that you have, from working with Thomas Leonard, from work with Stephen Covey, or at least knowledge from his books, what do you think, if a person's starting off in coaching, or maybe just wants to get better at the coaching that they're doing now, what do you think are really essential coaching skills for a person to have to master to become a great coach?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a fundamental one in the toolkit is asking thought-provoking questions. I mean, open questions that really help people to think. Another resource that I came across very early on, which I think I mentioned in the session where you saw me speak, was Nancy Klein's book, Time to Think. And do you know that book?
No.
Oh, wow. Well, it's definitely worth picking up. It's got to be 20 years old now. She wrote a sequel called, very creatively, More Time to Think. So Nancy Klein with a K.
Okay.
And I love that book because it's reminded me that one of the things that there's a lack of, particularly in busy working environments, is good quality thinking time. And particularly, as I say, where there's a lot going on, people are operating often in very fast-paced kind of way. There's can be a tendency for people to interrupt each other and interrupt each other's thinking. And so she talks a lot about, creating a thinking environment, and she talks about creating the opportunity for people to have thinking partnerships. And I think coaching is, it offers that opportunity for people to have really good quality thinking. And the questions that we ask as coaches are such an essential ingredient.
Do you have a particular set of questions that you ask, or is there just a template for how to ask thought-provoking questions? What questions?
Well, I think that my questioning over the years, the more you do it, the more intuitive it becomes. And so I kind of now am much more instinctive and much more intuitive about the kinds of questions I ask. But good questions tend to be, not always, but tend to be more open questions.
What do you mean by open question?
Open questions, or the what would need to happen, in order for you to achieve that. What would be some of the options that you might have available? How could you go about that? So the how, the what, the I was going to say the when, because that can be an important kind of question in terms of helping people to pin themselves down as to when they're actually going to take action and do something. But those kind of open questions, as opposed to closed questions that have a yes or no answer. Okay. So do you think, or even the, is it because of this or this? Giving people two choices rather than the kind of question, well, what do you think the reason for that might be?
I see. So it's promoting discussion, promoting conversation rather than yes or no.
Promoting thinking. Yeah. Cool. So really good quality, open, thought-provoking questions, problem-solving questions, discovery-type questions.
Yeah. Would that book, Man's Time to Think, have, is that a way to learn how to ask questions like that? Is that where you learned how to do that?
Yeah. So there is it's a while since I've read it actually, and I usually have it on my desk to wave at people. But there is there's a set of questions in there that, and I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger, so that the listener will go, oh, I think I need to order that book on Amazon and find this set of questions. But there's a good set of questions which get really underneath people's belief systems. So what are you assuming about that answer? And what are you assuming about that answer? And what are you assuming about this? So we can get a bedrock assumption. Be powerful.
That's very interesting. Is that sort of how you came up? You co-wrote a book, did you not, about belief change with Tony Burgess?
I did. Well, yeah, we've written a couple of books. Well, we've written 3, but the first one was a bit of an experiment. But the 2 more recent ones, and the one you're referring, both of them we wrote years ago, probably 10 years ago now. The one you're referring to is our 6-step belief change process, right, called Beliefs and How to Change Them for Good. But that actually isn't in there.
Oh, okay.
So that assuming. Although one of the steps is about doing a beliefs audit. So it is about helping you to uncover what thoughts, assumptions, ideas, senses that you might have, and putting them into, are they smoothing the way or are they getting in the way? But I'm giving you some of the, one of the, have you read our book?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes, I have.
You have?
I have, yes. I actually own a copy. But I am just very curious, going back for a moment to Thomas Leonard, would you say that when you do coaching with people that you are kind of using more of the Thomas Leonard, if you will, template for coaching, or would you say that you have evolved to do more of the, pink bucket thinking or various other things that you've developed on your own over the years?
Yeah, I would say that that my coaching, as I reflect on it now, has very much evolved as I've gathered skills along the way. So I started with Thomas Leonard, then very, very soon after that, I got into NLP. And I know that, you're a big NLP fan as well.
Yeah.
And I started my whole journey in NLP. And then, of course, my coaching became very integrated in with NLP and using NLP methods and NLP techniques. So yeah, that's evolved. And then of course every book that I've read, and I'm referring to Stephen Covey, I'm referring to Nancy Klein. As we kind of pick up books to develop ourselves and develop our practice, we tend to find ourselves including what we learn in our coaching, don't we?
Yes, indeed.
Becomes very sort of eclectic.
Yeah.
So
when you do coaching, do you have, is it completely client centered then, or is it just based on your intuitive feeling about what this person needs, and then you try to work with that person, or do you have a sort of set kind of way of going about coaching that you want to cover this material and this material and this material? How do you go about it?
So it's very client-centered, and pretty well always starts the actual getting into the coaching with getting a clear outcome for the coaching.
Great.
That what do you want question, what are you looking to achieve? How will you know that this coaching has been successful? If I had a magic dust and I could sprinkle it over you and everything's just the way you want it to be, how would you know? And I always get into outcomes very, very early on. I learned that really through my sort of NLP world. But of course, sometimes the first part of any coaching session is just people wanting to talk and offload and just share what's going on for them. But I'll always try and get that, what we call that A to B journey. I'll always want to get that, and then once we've got that, the tools will be very much determined by what that A to B journey is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's so interesting. I came to coaching after having learned NLP. I was learned NLP back in 1985, and I met Thomas Leonard at a conference where he and I were both speaking. It's hard for me to imagine that when I think back, but it's true. He and I were both presenters at a conference, and I was intrigued. I mean, I met him briefly backstage, but I was intrigued by his talk, and so I did what you did. I called up that number and started doing things over the phone with him. And, but, I was always thinking through it kind of an NLP lens, that kind of meta model, how specifically is that going to work kind of questions would be coming up. How do we create anchors for this, create so it becomes systematized. It was always kind of in my thinking. And part of it in the back of my mind, have always kind of wondered how people can actually do coaching effectively without incorporating NLP into it. Because it seems to me, my particular prejudice or whatever, it seems to me so essential, an essential coaching skill. I mean, it seems so essential to be able to ask those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
And to create an outcome for a person, and with them to be very clear on how will you know when you've got it? What specifically will you see, hear, or feel and know that lets you know that you've gotten it? Sort of. So it seems so critical. Do you find that as well?
Completely. Yeah. As a havening trainer now, and we're assessing people who want to go on and become certified practitioners. I really know the people, the difference between the people who've got those skills and the ones who haven't, and the difference in terms of the outcomes, the quality of the outcomes. Yeah,
that's very interesting. I'm guessing that there will be a few people listening who are haveners. So, so now that you've opened that little door, let's go a little further inside. Tell me more about that. What do you mean by? I mean, what kind of advantage does NLP give somebody who does havening?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, if we just start with havening, the wonderful thing about havening is it does blend in with all manner of other tools that people have got in their toolkit. So, I want to be respectful to the havener that's listening, that it really can blend, as I say, and enhance other tools. So obviously we're incredibly biased, aren't we?
Well, you are. Clear.
You're just telling the truth.
Thank you for saying that. Just by the way, before you hold that thought right there, just hold that thought. I just want to say for people who are listening that don't know what havening is, havening is a psychosensory therapy similar to EFT or TFT, different tapping techniques, similar to EMDR, which uses lateral eye movement and bilateral stimulation to create, in all cases, delta waves, which in turn release different chemicals into the brain like oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine and GABA and various other mechanisms take place. So it becomes a really amazing kind of applied neuroscience that enhances, therefore, whatever else you're doing, like NLP, et cetera, as far as I'm concerned. It's a real great, as we say, bolt on for those other sorts of therapies. And sometimes people come to havening who don't have those other therapies, to start with. They're like, wow, what's this? And they just, start learning havening. So what do you see? What do we kind of need to say are the basics of extra coaching, extra coach curricular, I don't know how to say this, tools beyond the havening, just touching some, your face and getting delta waves. What do you think is really critical? What's essential for somebody to really be good?
Yeah. I mean, the great thing is that there are a plethora of very good books on NLP. You've written one yourself.
Wow, yeah.
Well, I mean, you maybe have written more than one.
No, just the one. It's called The User's Guide to Studying NLP.
But there are a lot of really good books on NLP, and I would would recommend to somebody that doesn't have NLP tools to, just have a little look at some NLP
Do you have any
material?
like NLP
Well,
that you?
I'm quite a big fan of Anthony Robbins, actually, and there's a lot to be said for his unlimited power.
Wow.
It's got some good NLP in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to tell you the truth, that is exactly what I tell people as well, and I'm really pleased to hear it coming out of your mouth instead of mine. But yeah, I started off as a trainer for Tony Robbins, and his book Unlimited Power is an NLP book, and for my money, it's one of the most clearly written primers about NLP that's out there.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the great things about the way that he writes is that it's very accessible, very easy to understand.
Yeah.
And so I would definitely concur there that that would be a really good place to start, because I think when you kind of get these concepts, the map is not the territory. I mean, wow, what a concept. Mm-hmm. And that people are representing the world, in the sensory domain, that brings so much information in terms of the way that we can help people to get out of their own way.
Yeah.
When we can see that, it's largely, taking an inside out approach, that it's largely, the way that people are perceiving that is, getting in the way of them making progress. And, that's where we need to target our efforts.
Right.
And Havening works so brilliantly because it's a lovely way of integrating more conscious processes mm-hmm. with more unconscious amygdala-based responses, right. And putting the two together, we can get some great magic, can't we? Because people's thinking can, conscious thinking, what they say to themselves, either consciously or unconsciously, can take them up the wrong path or can take them to freedom. And so, helping people to have better internal processes at the same time as, getting those touch-based, as you say, the neurochemicals and the delta waves. It's a wonderful combination.
It truly is. And, I'm curious about this as well. Just giving you a little background about what question I'm going to ask you. When I started doing NLP back in 1985, I had no intention of becoming a therapist. I was just something I was just curious about, interested in. For me, I was just doing it for me. And it sort of evolved and happened because I became so interested in it that I started doing it more and more. And then people started asking, hey, what's going on? Can you help me with that? And it just sort of happened that I became a NLP and hypnosis practitioner. Just sort of evolved. Yeah. And I've been doing it, as a profession since 1990. That's my gig, it's my thing. I do sessions with people, I do coaching with people. And then I more recently do havening. And I have found that as effective as I have been over the years with NLP and hypnosis, that havening just brings another level to that. So when I learned havening in 2013, it changed things. And I still do NLP. I still do hypnosis. I still do coaching, still refer back to Thomas Leonard's materials from 1999. And I do havening with just about everybody that I work with at some point or another. I at least teach them how to do like affirmational havening or something like that. Yeah. Do you do that as well? Do you bring havening into your coaching? Like if somebody wants to just strictly speaking do coaching with you, do you introduce havening to them as well?
Yeah. I listen for amygdala-based issues.
Yeah.
So say I'm working with somebody and it's more corporate type coaching, and they're talking about, say, you know, fear of public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, worrying about a meeting, or worrying about a meeting that they've just had, or you know, just you know, feeling guilty about things. You know, any of those kinds of things that come up are a great opportunity for us to talk about the limbic system, and you know, in the brain, and to talk about that oldest part of the brain that's, you know, they're serving us for survival, but you know, can sometimes it can be like the alarm system's permanently on, or it's like one of those car alarms where, you know, you walk past it and you're nowhere near it, but the alarm goes off. It's like we're anywhere near that car, but the alarm system's gone off. It's like, you know, what's going on there? And some people are living their lives like that in, you know, in corporate life.
It's interesting. And, great metaphor. I love the car alarms that say, "Step back from the car." It's like, yeah, screw you, buddy. You're talking to me. Let me ask you the second question that I traditionally like to ask people on this podcast, and that is going back to essential coaching skills. People, when they do coaching, often focus on how to be a good coach. And that's, of course, a critical skill set to have. And yet, doing that by itself is not necessarily going to make you have a positive bank balance at the end of the month. One needs to make money as a professional. So I'm just curious, what do you think might be in the category of essential coaching skills for a coach to be successful as a business person, you know, to have a viable coaching practice?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say, you know, marketing and sales are going to be pretty crucial.
Okay.
Pretty crucial. And, oh my goodness, I mean, there are so many different marketing models, aren't there?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really important to recognize that, you know, it's like anything else that you've got in the marketplace. It's like you've got to wave a flag and say, I'm here and this is what I do, and be visible in some way. So whether you're using social media, or whether you are using more traditional forms of marketing and selling, in other words, you know, more direct approaching people, or whether you're using the internet and you're using, you know, AdWords, you've got to think about, how am I going to get clients? How am I going to get recognized? How am I going to be able to find, you know, how are people going to be able to find me? And people often, you know, when advising about marketing, will talk about what we in the UK call niching, but I think you call it niching.
Yes. Well, we pronounce things properly over here in America.
So, you know, it's, I mean, I can see that people have had I can see a lot of people have had success with getting a very, very clearly defined offering that is aligned with what you love doing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said for that. But I would say that kind of thing is pretty essential.
You have a niche for yourself? Do you have a particular niche?
Sorry?
Do you have a particular niche for yourself? No.
No. No. I kind of raised it in a sort of, well, people say that that's what you should do, and I'm sure that's right. Myself and Tony, my business partner and life partner, have often talked about the whole niching thing, but we both really like variety.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're probably not the right people to be, to be talking about this, because we tend to break the rules, and don't really want to pin it down. I like variety. I like coaching people in all kinds of different areas. And
that's actually one of the cool things about coaching is as well, is that you can coach people in a variety of different areas. I have people that I'm coaching for years. Sometimes people have been weekly coaching clients. I talk to them every week. Yeah. I know very little, if anything, about their business. Like as a guy who's a developer of low income housing in Florida, very, very successful at that. I've helped him be very, very successful, but I know absolutely nothing about being a developer. But I know about, people, and I know about communication, and I know about beliefs and anchors and, amygdala-based disorders, and, a variety of things can be very, very useful in a coaching practice. That's just endlessly fascinating to me. I'm with you. I don't actually niche market myself as much as I should, but I've also.
Well, I mean, I don't know about as much as I should, because I think we're both on the same page in terms of helping people to have more choices, because they feel good about themselves, and because they have, let go of maybe some baggage that they might have been carrying around, and because they, understand the power of mentally rehearsing what they do want, things like that, which so that's why it's very, very transferable in that case. And I'm totally with you. When I first started coaching, I was coaching people in industries I knew nothing about. I had some clients in the rail industry. I've never worked in the rail industry. I don't know anything about it at all. But it was very transferable. That just didn't matter.
Right.
Because it was about, as you say, about human beings, human behavior, communication, all of those things.
And I will say this about the marketing aspect of things. It is a necessary thing. And the more that you can enjoy the process, the more you'll be able to, do what's necessary to make it happen, make your coaching practice a viable one. And also it's nice to know that once you get it going to a certain level, then it becomes more of a maintenance thing. Yeah. You don't have to be spending too many hours of the day doing it, but it is something you do need to actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think around the sales side of it, having conversations with people who might be interested. I realize as I look back that when I first started putting myself out there, my belief system was not as robust as it could have been. So in other words, I didn't have a lot of certainty about myself as somebody that could really offer value to people. I had a little bit of self-doubt creeping in. And as I've evolved, I realize now I'm a lot less attached, because I know what I do is of value to people, and it's almost like, and I wouldn't want this to come across too arrogant, but it really, I do have this sort of sense of, honestly, take it or leave it, because I know it's good, and that's very different to when I first started.
Right. Yeah, certainly there is a certain power in being able to say, take it or leave it. If you're desperate for the sale, you're probably not going to get the sale.
Exactly. So that's a big change that I've noticed, and also that I'm having those conversations. I really do want to know whether or not this is right for this person, and whether I'm the right fit for this person. So I'm a lot less attached. I feel actually very unattached.
Nice.
Because I don't want to be coaching somebody that I don't feel is, I'm the right person. I just want to be coaching. Well, going back to the Coach You material, I remember, one of the very first things we did was identify our ideal client.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that was very, very powerful for me. It's like, actually, I've left a job where there was a lot of stuff there that, wasn't serving me. I now want to create a life where it's, I'm choosing the things that I put in, including the clients.
Right. Very cool. Well, I know that you have done exactly that, and it's it's an amazing pleasure to have you on this broadcast, if you will. Before I let you go, I know you've got things you've got to do. I could talk to you all day. But if people want to get hold of you, Julie French, where will they be able to do that?
Oh, well, I can give you my email address.
That'd be okay. Do you have a website as well? Is there anything like that? Or
yes. Oh my goodness, we have. Well, if I give you our hub website, because we have several websites, but you can find all of them from this hub website, which is all the W's. AHA -success.com.
AHA success.com.
AHA-success.com, and on there you'll get access to our Pink Bucket Thinking website, our Havening website, and we also have a psychometric profiling business as well, which is Everything Disc, the Wiley brand, and so you can find that website as well.
Very cool.
From that hub.
Disc is great stuff. That's really great. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, we've been partners, that's another story altogether, but we've been partners with Inscape, as was Wiley is now, since 2008.
How about that?
So 12 years. Yeah. So we've got a lot of experience now in working with Everything Disc. Right.
And you mentioned Pink Bucket Thinking.
Pink Bucket Thinking. We have a website, Pink Bucket Thinking, where people can have a look at what that's all about.
Very cool.
And our book, Pink Bucket. And just to say, with both the belief change and with the Pink Bucket Thinking, you can download the free PDF version of the book.
Oh.
So those are available.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And also on the Pink Bucket Thinking site, you will find on there 52 videos that Tony and I filmed a couple of years ago. We created these videos. So there's videos for each of the chapters in the Pink Bucket Thinking. Oh
my gracious heavens. Okay, great. What a resource. Fantastic.
They're kind of between about a minute and a half and 4 minutes. They're just small, short videos. And you'll see when you go on there that we filmed them on the beach in southern Spain.
Nice. Not too shabby. And little secret exposed right there of another way of doing marketing. You create wonderful content for people and give it away for free. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Julie, thank you so much for today. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's been really delightful, Doug. It really has. And, I hope that I've said something that might be of value to your listener or listeners.
We'll go through all that with a fine-tooth comb, and maybe something will pop out. So
yeah, but please do contact me if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn. Wow. And also on Facebook.
So more marketing right there. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want any more information about today's show, please visit our website at www.essentialcoachingskills.com. Be sure to tune in again next week for our next episode and discover even more about the systems and the secrets that set the best apart.